The Internet Age of Money, Genius Act as Global Blueprint. Introduction. Money is no longer just a paper promise or a central bank decree. It is becoming code, programmable, portable, and enforced by networks rather than vaults. As the Internet absorbs more of the world's financial plumbing, a new question has emerged. Who writes the rules for digital money? In the past, power over money was asserted through exclusive control of reserves, whether gold in the post-war period or fiat in the modern central banking era. Today, the architecture is shifting again. The United States is no longer just issuing dollars, it is scripting the conditions under which dollar-backed stablecoins can operate, and in doing so, laying the groundwork for a new kind of monetary dominance. At the center of this transformation is the Genius Act, a landmark piece of legislation that provides legal clarity for privately issued stablecoins backed by U.S. dollars. But the implications go beyond domestic regulation. The Genius Act is rapidly becoming a blueprint for how digital fiat systems might function globally. Its real power lies in anchoring reserves inside U.S. jurisdiction, even as the tokens circulate across global blockchains. This exposition explores how the Genius Act functions not simply as regulation, but as a strategic template, one that echoes the spirit of Bretton Woods, but operates on a fundamentally different substrate, the Internet. As we'll see, this is no longer just about the dollar. It's about the modular future of money, where store of value, medium of exchange, and unit of account are disaggregated, and nations must decide how to defend or reinvent their role in the financial stack. Section 2. From Bretton Woods to blockchain. To understand the weight of the Genius Act, we must look back to a moment when the United States last rewrote the rules of global finance, Bretton Woods, 1944. In the ashes of World War II, representatives from 44 nations gathered in New Hampshire to design a new monetary order. Their solution was simple in theory but monumental in effect: peg all currencies to the U.S. dollar and peg the dollar to gold. The world agreed, because the United States had the gold, the production capacity, and the political clout. For decades, this system offered stability, but it came with a center of gravity: Washington. Every global transaction passed through the logic of the dollar, and by extension, through the rules set by the United States. Eventually, the system broke. By 1971, facing inflation and a gold drain, the U.S. unilaterally closed the gold window, ending the dollar's formal convertibility into gold. The world shifted to a fiat regime, currencies backed by nothing more than government trust and credit. Central banks now had more freedom, but the dollar remained dominant, thanks to deep capital markets, global trade flows, and petrodollar arrangements. Fast forward to today, and we are on the edge of another break. This time, it's not gold that's collapsing. It's the plumbing of fiat systems themselves. Cross-border payments are slow, costly, and heavily intermediated. Emerging economies are boxed out of dollar access. Financial infrastructure is brittle, fragmented, and decades behind the pace of the Internet. Into this void step stablecoins, digital tokens pegged to fiat currencies but designed for real-time, global settlement. While early stablecoins emerged from the crypto ecosystem, their utility quickly outpaced their origins. Businesses began using them for payments, remittances, yield farming, and on-chain trading, but their legal status remained uncertain until now. The Genius Act steps in where monetary law had fallen behind technology. But more than a regulatory patch, it may be the digital equivalent of Bretton Woods, a framework that defines how fiat-backed value will move in a tokenized world. Instead of physical vaults of gold, we now have digital vaults of fiat, and the location of those vaults matters just as much. Section 3. Anatomy of the Genius Act. At first glance, the Genius Act might appear to be just another regulatory step in the evolution of digital assets. But under the hood, it functions as a jurisdictional firewall, a monetary anchor, and a geopolitical lever, all in one. The core premise is simple. If you want to issue a stablecoin backed by U.S. dollars, those dollars must be held in regulated U.S. financial institutions, fully redeemable, fully disclosed, and fully compliant. Let's break down what makes this act so structurally significant. 1. Legal clarity for dollar-backed stablecoins. Prior to the Genius Act, dollar-pegged stablecoins operated in a gray zone, There were patchwork enforcement actions, conflicting agency interpretations, and a lingering sense that any stablecoin could be shut down by regulation at any time. The Genius Act ends that ambiguity. It defines the legal contours of compliant stablecoin issuance, setting strict rules around redemption rights, audit transparency, reserve composition, such as short-term treasuries or insured cash deposits, and institutional custody requirements. This creates the regulatory certainty that fintech firms, payment processors, and traditional financial institutions need in order to scale stablecoin usage without fear of legal whiplash. 2. Reserve localization, the new monetary anchor. Perhaps the most geopolitically potent clause in the Act is its requirement that reserves must remain within U.S. jurisdiction. This means U.S. dollars backing stablecoins cannot be held in offshore entities or foreign banks. The reserve layer is onshore, even if the tokens themselves flow globally on public blockchains. In effect, the United States controls the base layer of liquidity for the digital dollar system. This is the modern equivalent of keeping gold in Fort Knox. The physical asset may no longer be bullion, but the principle is the same. Control the reserve, control the system. 3. Permissionless distribution, permission compliance. The Genius Act doesn't prohibit stablecoins from being used globally. On the contrary, it embraces the reality that digital dollars will circulate freely across wallets, apps, and chains. But while the movement layer is borderless, the compliance layer is tightly secured. Issuers must monitor flows for sanctions, fraud, and AML risks, report regularly to U.S. regulators, honor redemption obligations under U.S. law. This combination of programmable liquidity and embedded compliance creates a stablecoin model that's both scalable and sovereign. It's a design others may be forced to mimic or resist. In short, the Genius Act doesn't just legalize stablecoins, it weaponizes jurisdiction. It transforms stablecoins from speculative assets into regulated digital dollars tethered to U.S. institutions, enforceable by U.S. law, and compatible with global infrastructure. Next up, how other monetary powers are reacting. Section 4, the global response. Monetary multipolarity emerges. The Genius Act doesn't exist in a vacuum. Its passage sent a clear signal. The United States is no longer just defending the dollar's dominance, it's redefining it for a tokenized world. This forces a question onto every other major economic bloc. If the US dollar is now natively digital and legally protected on open networks, what happens to the yen, euro, and renminbi? The answer is already in motion. Around the world, nations are beginning to adapt, not by creating pure central bank digital currencies, but by authorizing their own stablecoins under frameworks that mirror or counter the Genius model. Japan, quiet precision, strategic adaptation. Japan, with its deep understanding of monetary transmission and cautious innovation style, is exploring legal frameworks for stablecoin yen issuance. Key elements under discussion include ensuring reserves are held in Japanese banks, allowing private firms to issue yen-backed tokens under FSA oversight, avoiding CBDC overreach in favor of private sector innovation. Japan recognizes that if the dollar becomes the default stablecoin globally, its monetary policy loses relevance in the long run. The Genius Act has pushed Japan to define a digitally sovereign yen, not just as legal tender, but as programmable infrastructure. European Union, regulatory muscle meets monetary fragility. The EU's response comes through MiCA regulation, which creates a legal framework for euro-denominated stablecoins. However, Europe's challenge is more complex. The euro lacks a unified fiscal authority to back its currency with the same conviction as the United States. MiCA introduces strict issuer requirements, but no true pan-European champion for euro stablecoins. Yet, there's growing concern that dollar stablecoins could become the de facto money within EU digital commerce. Europe must now ask whether it wants to play defense, regulating dollar stablecoins tightly, or offense, supporting euro-backed alternatives that can scale. China, walled gardens, global ambitions. China has taken a more state-centric approach. The digital yuan is a fully sovereign central bank digital currency, but China has also experimented with renminbi-backed stablecoins for cross-border use via Hong Kong and Belt and Road corridors. China's strategy diverges from the Genius model. No private stablecoin issuance onshore. Closed-loop domestic digital yuan use. Tightly controlled reserve and redemption mechanics. However, there are signs of flexibility. especially in cross-border trade zones where renminbi stablecoins might help reduce reliance on SWIFT and U.S. banking rails. While China may never mirror the Genius model directly, it is building a parallel infrastructure with the same goal: digital monetary influence. The shape of monetary multipolarity. What emerges is a new dynamic. U.S. stablecoins, backed by Genius, seek to become global money with legal safety. Local stablecoins, backed by other sovereigns, aim to protect monetary autonomy. All of them interact on public blockchains, which don't recognize borders. This isn't a Cold War. It's a competitive convergence, where each country rushes to build its own digital foundation before the defaults are set in stone or in code. This content is brought to you by Bobby Giggs. Promote your brand here and reach a wide audience across platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Follow the links in the description to get started. Section 5, the store of value layer. Gold and Bitcoin enter. As stablecoins compete for monetary dominance in a fragmented but increasingly interoperable world, a deeper layer begins to emerge beneath them, the store of value layer. For centuries, gold served this role. In recent decades, fiat currencies, especially the dollar, carried the mantle, albeit shakily. But as inflation, debt saturation, and political risk erode trust in national currencies, individuals and institutions are once again asking a timeless question: where should I store my wealth, if not in paper promises? In the internet age of money, the answer increasingly points to tokenized gold and Bitcoin, digital assets that are borderless, scarce, and resistant to policy manipulation. The unbundling of money, store of value, medium of exchange, unit of account. Traditionally, money served three roles in one: store of value, wealth preservation; medium of exchange, payment facilitation; unit of account, pricing standard. In a programmable, modular system, these roles are no longer bound together. Users can now hold Bitcoin or tokenized gold as a long-term store of value, convert into stablecoins for spending, conduct pricing in any currency supported by their apps or wallets. This means a person in Argentina can store wealth in digital gold, spend in stablecoin yen, and see prices in US dollars without touching a single bank. This freedom was never possible in the analog system. Now it's a matter of wallet design and network connectivity. Gold returns, but tokenized and redeemable. Tokenized gold revives the ancient role of bullion, but with real-time liquidity, programmable ownership, and potential physical redemption rights. The catch? Trust hinges on redemption integrity. If tokenized gold is not redeemable, or if the issuing custodian is opaque or politically compromised, its appeal diminishes. This creates an opening for gold-producing nations like Ghana, South Africa, or even neutral financial hubs like Singapore to become trusted issuers of redeemable gold tokens. Their neutrality and resource base could make them anchor points in a fragmented store of value market. Bitcoin, digital scarcity with global reach. Bitcoin, by contrast, is not backed by anything physical, but it is globally recognized, mathematically scarce, and increasingly treated as monetary insurance. Its role in the new financial stack is twofold: as a hedge against inflation, currency debasement, and capital controls; as a programmable reserve asset held by individuals, institutions, and even sovereigns. In a world where fiat is soft and stablecoins are politicized, Bitcoin is the hard alternative, a digital gold that settles in minutes and cannot be censored at the base layer. Friction points: tax, custody, and perception. Despite their appeal, gold and Bitcoin are not frictionless. Tax treatment can make conversion into stablecoins a taxable event in some jurisdictions. Custodial risks for tokenized gold and self-custody complexity for Bitcoin still deter mainstream adoption. Perception gaps remain. Some still see gold as archaic and Bitcoin as volatile or speculative. But these barriers are slowly eroding. As wallets, tax tools, and regulatory frameworks mature, a multipolar store of value ecosystem is forming, one where users choose their anchor, not their overlord. Section 6, a new default, programmable Bretton Woods. The Genius Act, along with the global rise of sovereign-backed stablecoins and decentralized stores of value, signals the emergence of a new monetary architecture, a digital Bretton Woods built not on gold bars or fixed pegs, but on code, jurisdiction, and programmable liquidity. But unlike 1944, there was no summit, no formal signatures, no gold standard to enforce. Instead, the new system is forming organically and competitively, where nations set the terms for how their fiat can be digitized, and where users, not governments, choose what to hold, what to spend, and how to convert between them. This new default has several defining features. Jurisdictional anchors, global tokens under the Genius model. The reserve asset is local, but the token circulates globally. That means a dollar-backed stablecoin might live on Ethereum or Solana, but the dollars themselves remain in U.S. banks, under U.S. legal control. Other nations are adapting this model, not just for control, but to retain credibility. In a world of digital bearer assets, the location of the reserve, and the legal system that governs it, becomes a proxy for trust. This turns legal infrastructure into monetary infrastructure. Programmable liquidity, embedded compliance. Stablecoins are not just digital versions of fiat. They are programmable financial instruments. They can be restricted from entering sanctioned addresses. They can carry time locks or spending constraints. They can integrate with automated tax reporting or identity layers. This allows for instant compliance without relying on intermediary banks. It also allows for modular interoperability, where different stablecoins can be swapped atomically via decentralized exchanges or even embedded into smart contracts for payroll, trade finance, or cross-border settlement. Local rails, global interchange. Imagine a world where you hold your savings in tokenized gold, you get paid in stablecoin yen, you pay rent in stablecoin US dollars, and you use stablecoin euros for travel. All of this is orchestrated via wallets, oracles, and decentralized exchanges, not traditional banks or foreign exchange brokers. This isn't theoretical. It's becoming the new default for digital native users, especially in regions with high inflation, capital controls, or limited banking infrastructure. It's faster, cheaper, more transparent, and increasingly sovereign compliant. The result? A world where money is local in regulation but global in function. A reversal of the old system, where cross-border finance was monopolized by a handful of reserve currencies and banking institutions. The architecture is already being set like TCP/IP for the Internet. The early frameworks we establish now will become locked-in standards, difficult to replace later. The Genius Act is setting one such standard for dollar-denominated value. MiCA, Japanese FSA guidance, and Chinese experimentation are drafting their own versions. Users are beginning to adapt, choosing assets, wallets, and rails that reflect their needs, not their flags. This is how the new Bretton Woods is being written, not by treaty, but by adoption curves, jurisdictional clarity, and digital incentives. Section 7, Strategic Implications. The architecture of money has always been political. Whoever controls the rules of settlement, the reserve assets, and the financial messaging infrastructure gains influence far beyond economics. It becomes a form of soft power. The Genius Act and its global ripple effects reveal a strategic truth. In a world of digital finance, code is currency policy, and jurisdiction is leverage. Let's break down the strategic implications across key stakeholders. For the United States, digital dollar hegemony. Reinforce the Genius Act doesn't replace dollar dominance, it reinforces it through modern rails. By requiring reserves to be held onshore, the United States effectively extends its legal perimeter into the digital realm. Every compliant dollar stablecoin becomes a digital ambassador of U.S. monetary sovereignty, regardless of where the token flows. Crucially, the Act co-ops private sector innovation, such as fintechs, payment firms, and crypto infrastructure, into the U.S. regulatory orbit. It achieves scale without central bank overhead and legal trust without technological paralysis. The United States is not issuing a central bank digital currency, it's outsourcing it to the market, with the law as its boundary. For other nations, a narrowing window. The longer countries wait to define their own stablecoin regimes, the more they risk becoming digital dollar zones by default. If users in Argentina or Nigeria prefer dollar stablecoins for savings and payments, their local monetary policy becomes irrelevant. Even in advanced economies like Germany or Japan, if the euro or yen doesn't have a viable stablecoin equivalent, the network effects of dollar stablecoins could hollow out domestic liquidity. This creates a geopolitical time pressure. Nations must act quickly to create compliant, credible stablecoin versions of their own currencies, ensure their monetary infrastructure can interact with global token ecosystems, Avoid dependence on foreign legal frameworks for digital value transfer. In short, the window to shape digital money as a sovereign instrument is closing. For users, sovereignty through choice. The end user now wields a kind of monetary agency that didn't exist before. You can store wealth in Bitcoin, gold, or fiat. You can spend in whichever stablecoin suits your context. You can convert across currencies and stores of value in seconds, with little friction. This puts pressure on governments. If they want their citizens to use national currencies, they must earn that trust through usability, stability, and interoperability. It also introduces new risks. Tax complexity, as each swap or conversion may trigger reporting obligations. Regulatory ambiguity, especially for cross-border activity. Custodial dependency, unless users can self-manage their assets. Still, the direction is clear. Users can now exit, hedge, or bypass traditional systems without leaving their wallet. The future of monetary alliances. We may begin to see new forms of monetary coalitions emerge, not around fixed pegs, but around interoperable standards and shared rails. Examples include an Asian stablecoin corridor anchored by yen, won, and Singapore dollars, commodity-backed stablecoin alliances for energy exporters, Latin American experiments using tokenized regional units of account. These will not replace the dollar, but they may carve out zones of digital autonomy using local legal frameworks and digital primitives. In this fluid, programmable monetary world, the key strategic asset is no longer just a reserve currency. It is a protocol layer backed by law, trust, and global interoperability. Section 8, Conclusion. The Genius Act marks more than a regulatory milestone. It marks a shift in the global monetary logic. Where Bretton Woods tethered the world to gold and dollars through fixed exchange rates and central banks, the internet age of money is tethering it through jurisdiction, code, and programmable trust. The reserve is no longer gold. It's fiat, held in compliant accounts. The settlement is no longer done through banks. It's executed by wallets and smart contracts. The question is no longer what currency you use, but where it's regulated and how you can convert it. In this new architecture, the United States acts as both issuer and enforcer, using legal clarity to protect and project dollar dominance through privately issued stablecoins. Other nations must respond with credible alternatives or risk having their monetary systems absorbed into dollar-based digital rails. Individuals and businesses gain new freedoms, but also new responsibilities as they navigate a world where value is modular, programmable, and increasingly borderless. The Genius Act is not just a domestic policy. It is a programmable blueprint for how sovereign money adapts to an open financial network. Its model will be copied, contested, or countered, but it has already moved the Overton window. Whether this becomes a stable, interoperable world of sovereign stablecoins or a fragmented landscape of competing standards will depend on how quickly others act and how well users adapt. But one thing is clear. The internet now has its own monetary layer, and the Genius Act may be the first serious attempt to govern it.